The NFL trade deadline was wild this season, with so many premium draft choices changing hands. But will it put your team over the top? Let's take a look. Yes, in-season trades are becoming much more common. 22 this year alone, most on record, and 55 over the past 3. For a little perspective, consider, from 2002 to 2012, there were only 47. So, why are there more trades? Well, the NFL keeps moving back the deadline. First from week 6 to week 8 in 2012, and then last year to week 9. We're to the point now, halfway through the season, where teams know whether they're going to be good or bad. They have a better idea of whether they should be buying or selling. Also, general managers are younger than they've ever been. Younger GMs tend to be more willing to trade draft picks, to take risks, and live with the consequences. There might also be fewer financial constraints on GMs to make these moves. Cash is flowing more freely in the league, salary caps are at an all-time high, and teams have learned to manage the cap better. Still, the fact remains, most of these trades do not move the needle. Fans always want their team to pick up a Von Miller or a Christian McCaffrey. It just rarely works that way. We tend to think of teams loading up the deadline to make a big push for the Super Bowl, but over the last 10 years, less than half of teams to make a player acquisition during the season even reach the playoffs, and only 30% won a playoff game. Part of why most trades don't move the needle? Very few involve game-changing players. There were a couple of exceptions this year, Sauce Gardner, Quinnen Williams. Still, since 2002, only 44 of 210 player acquisitions involved picks in the first 3 rounds. Even when teams do make big swings before the deadline, the results are mixed. Of the 22 teams that traded picks in the first 2 rounds since 2002, only half reached the playoffs that season. Why the muted impact? Well, football is different from baseball and basketball. Unless you're a quarterback, it's very hard to make a tangible difference that everybody notices. You might have a Kadarius Toney or a Mecole Hardman making a difference to play here or there in a Super Bowl, but they're not mainstay players. They're not the reason Kansas City got over the top. Sometimes desperation just leads to bad decisions at the deadline. We all remember the Jets in 2024 with a 2-4 record, their season slipping away, sending a 3rd-round pick to the Raiders for Davante Adams. The lure of making the big move in season that gets your team over the top remains every GM's dream. Think of the Rams adding Von Miller and winning it all. Or even San Francisco picking up Christian McCaffrey and getting to the NFC title game. There's a key distinction to be made between these outlier deals. Von Miller was a 1-year rental, gone after the Super Bowl. Meanwhile, McCaffrey was younger, had 3 years left on his contract, and was a franchise building block for years to come. So that gives us a blueprint for what an ideal in-season trade looks like. You're getting a proven young player who has multiple years left on his contract, or is at least willing to negotiate a new one, and you're in position as a team with your coach, your staff, to maximize them. What does that tell us about this year's trades? Well, as usual, there were a bunch that aren't going to move the needle. Late round picks flying back and forth, but I do think the Sauce Gardner deal, the Quinnen Williams deal, and the Jaelen Phillips deal bear a little closer look. The Colts trade for Sauce Gardner checks a lot of those Christian McCaffrey boxes. Colts are a good team with a 7-2 record. They're getting a young player in his prime with multiple years left on his contract. This could help put them over the top this year, but even if it doesn't, it could help them be a much better team over the next few seasons. As for the Quinnen Williams acquisition in Dallas, I'm not sure that's going to put the Cowboys over the top. He's 27 years old. He has 2 years left on his contract. He may not be Micah Parsons, who the Cowboys controversially traded away to the Packers before the season, but he is going to help their defense without question. As for the Eagles, their acquisition of Jaelen Phillips is a little bit different. He is not under contract beyond this season, but when you're Philadelphia, when you're Howie Roseman, their GM, you're all in every year. You can worry about the future then. Maybe Jaelen Phillips gives their defensive line a boost and helps them defend their Super Bowl title.